feel like we should be playing Tiny Bubbles or something.
Hi everybody, welcome to tonight's online kitchen chat. We have some very special guests this evening. I know we said some are entertaining, but it's more of a Q&A with some of our fantastic club members and our winemaker and viticulturalist. So starting here we have one of our wine club members, Ken Reeder, and then his wife, Jane Wakefield, and then our lovely Carol Beaton. Hello. And then everybody knows this guy already. There's no introductions needed, but this is Andrew Moon, our viticulturalist and vineyard manager.
Hello, Joanne.
Hi. And then we have the lovely, last but not least. So tonight we're doing something a little special. We've chosen actually each of our favorite wines. So we're actually starting favorite wine that got her into Tinhorn Creek. And yeah, without further ado, are we technical? Are we okay?
I'm not hearing anything in my ears, so I'm just confirming that our input is where it's supposed to be. I'm seeing my voice going over it.
Okay.
And I apologize. There's just nothing in my ears right now. And
except for those 2 earbuds that are in there.
We're going to have a great.
Those are in there.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Someone do sign language.
Check one.
I'm good at Auslan.
I saw some on the new Jim Jeffries comedy release.
Easy to
I'll
restart.
interpret it down.
So we just got an audience member.
David?
We hear you, so we're good.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you, audience.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Danielle.
audience
That's
member.
Good to go.
And so, as we always do, which is traditional, I'd like to introduce my partner on wine, Jessica, who will be answering and typing to you as we go along. Come on, Jessica.
The fan of white
Hello.
of the wine world.
All right, so that's it. Let's get going, guys.
Okay.
So we have an agenda.
Maybe somebody talk about the production of the 2008's
Sounds
Cavron.
good.
Is that the slide that we're all looking at?
Yes.
Well,
Hot year.
yes. Start with the viticulture.
It was a hot year. This was the year just before me.
Yes.
It was.
There you go.
Wow.
But it was a hot year. I know it was a hot year. All these grapes would have come off the Black Sage. Obviously, and those vines would have been probably only 10 or 12 years old at that stage. So, yeah. A little bit louder.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, so probably 10 or 12-year-old vines at that stage would have come all off the Black Sage. I know there's guys who have been cropping probably 3 or 4 times an acre at that stage. And so great, those vines now are 25-year-old, 27-year-old. So
Did Tinhorn Creek plant those vines?
yes, they did.
So they had bought the property and put in the vines already?
Yes, so they bought those properties around, I'm guessing it was around, 92, 93, but maybe a little bit after that, 93, 94. And the Black Sage over there, the tragic thing was so Cab Franc wasn't very popular back, especially in the early 2000s. They nearly tore all the Cab Franc out of the Black Sage just as a sales decision, and luckily they didn't do that. So some of our best-selling wines, obviously now, and so we're very fortunate to have those wines still over there.
I'm glad they kept them.
Yeah,
Me too.
absolutely.
I think Carol would have cried.
I would have.
Yeah.
Can I tell my wonderful story that I know about Cab Franc?
Of course you can.
Cabernet Franc is one of the parents, along with Sauvignon Blanc, of Cabernet Sauvignon. I learned that here.
One of the 3.
Oh, excellent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
5 points. 5 points.
By following kitchen chats and listening to Sandra over the years and the Andrews over the years, I've learned a few things, and I thought that was fascinating.
But you're assuming what we were saying was true.
And it's the mummy. It's the mummy.
Cab Franc is the
It's the
mom.
mummy.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was the
So
dad.
that is the Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
And then the sexiness of Cab Sauv took over the world.
Silliness.
And nearly wiped Cab Franc off the face of the earth. So it's
And-
good to see it come back.
And yet it's the backbone of so many blends.
Mhm.
That's what I'm always surprised at.
Yeah, for us it goes into more wines than any other grape variety.
Oh.
Which is pretty impressive. I do know a little bit about Sandra's winemaking techniques for this wine. It would have been crushed into stems completely. And then she typically liked to inoculate with some pretty strong yeast. And then a good amount of pump overs for maybe 5 to 7 days. And then Sandra would press off early. So maybe 5, 6 days, 7 days on skins. And then would finish fermentation in barrel. And for this wine, it would have been all American oak, probably 25 to 30% in barrel for about at least a year in barrel.
It's a very nice choice.
Thank you. I think Cabernet, I mean, it was interesting. I want to share my one Cabernet Franc story. Is I was at a wedding and a friend had chosen to serve Tinhorn Creek Cabernet Franc. I was sitting across from a woman who said, ooh, red wine, ooh. And I said, oh, you must try this. And she went, ooh, red wine, ooh. So I was pretty impressed that I switched her over from drinking white with Cabernet Franc because she said there's so much flavor in it.
It's pretty impressive because Cab Franc's not really like an entry level
I know.
red wine for people to get into. It's usually a little bit more, something like Merlot or Peat, something a little bit softer,
Right.
a little bit easier to drink.
But with a meal, it's
Yeah.
just, it's lovely.
Yeah.
What does everybody think of the 2008? How it's holding up?
Well, I have to say, when Shalane asked us to
Definitely.
name a wine that really captured us early on in the wine club, the Cab Franc would have been a close second choice.
First choice for me.
First choice. Yeah.
Well, you can share
And-
your favorite with Carol.
And that's the magic of
Yeah.
buying a mixed case.
Right? There you go.
Yeah.
I have a question actually, because I noticed this. It's personal. It's my own question. Is that I went off our old tech sheets for the 2008 Cab Franc, and there's something that says they came in hand sorted and removed any non-grape material such as leaves and petioles. What are those? I'm killing that pronunciation and recognizing
And
that.
the leaf, you got the little piece that holds onto the rest of the tree or whatever. That's the
Okay.
petiole.
Oh, that's a fancy
so-
word for that.
Yeah.
And so if grapevines become, say if they become stressed or they late season, those petioles become really weak and they can fall off into the picking beds and stuff, right? But what happens if you use them in winemaking? They'll give you a lot of green.
Yeah, they're quite bitter.
Bitter
Okay.
and green
Yeah.
flavors.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why they were sorted in there.
Now, I have another non-grape material that sometimes goes into the mix. I spent a year with my family in the south of France, in the Luberon country, where it's co-op wine. It's Southern Rhone wine, GSM all the way. And in the crushing process, you get these beautiful little non-grape materials called frogs. And you just watch them go down.
Yeah, you try to save as many as you can without losing digits in the auger or something like
Yes.
that. But yeah, no, we both worked in Australia and it's far more interesting than frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can't not
That's right.
watch. It's like a car accident. You have to watch it.
Absolutely.
When do they come out?
The wine?
Not?
We try to end it as demo usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking we're not
Hopefully.
drinking body parts, are we?
Hopefully the hand sorting takes care of
Okay.
most of the animal parts. Yeah.
So it usually clears a hand sorting table when the brown snake sorts it.
Okay.
I guess we're not vegan.
Well, technically, in that circumstance, nobody would be.
No, that's true. Very true.
No.
I have a little note someone left. It says the Cab Franc is why we signed up with Tinhorn Creek.
Yay.
Just so you know. I just want to also make sure if everybody can hear us clearly. So if you could just leave a little comment, just make sure everything is clear.
Perfect. Are we leaving a comment or are they leaving a comment?
They are.
They are. Okay. I'm just like,
I can hear you, Jessica.
And Shalane's about to leave a comment.
Yes.
So things are progressing.
this sounds about right about how these nights go.
Here's the interesting thing, though, that if we're all talking about the fact that the Cab Franc, I mean, I think Tinhorn was one of the earliest ones to do just
Varietal.
the varietal,
Yes.
correct? And yet now it seems as though a lot of BC, or at least this area, is doing a Cab Franc.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why? What has made it? I mean, don't tell me it's the perfect growing conditions. What are you gonna tell me? Yeah. But I'm just saying,
So you don't want the
is there
Another
such,
5 points.
is there such a market now that people are saying, my gosh, this is a good grape, let's have more, that everybody's doing it, or is it, cart leading the horse is kind of what I'm asking.
Or is our
Cab
balance
Front,
mature?
I think in the last 10 years has seen a big resurgence, and it's just not in BC. Washington themselves
Yeah.
have started a massive resurgence.
California plantings are up.
California, Italians are now doing single varietal Cab Franc. It's a world phenomenon.
But why?
I think people got just sick of some of the big wines in your face,
Yeah.
and it's a lot more feministic. It's a beautiful wine. I think that's why it's become much more popular. The people have got more wine savvy,
Mhm.
and they Cab Franc.
And an alternate to the Cab Sauv too, which
Yeah.
is obviously pandemonium around the world. This Cab Sauv being planted everywhere. And so people certainly are looking for a point of differentiation for a marketing perspective, plus to offer their customers something else that is not Cab Sauv. So
Well, I'd also say that Tinhorn Creek Wine Club members like to think of themselves as advanced clubs.
absolutely.
Who were pioneers,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
settlers.
Agree.
That and it grows incredibly well on these sites.
Yes.
Less-
Variety suited to
Oh,
the
that's what they
Yeah.
But again, how long has Cab Franc been grown in BC? Do you know?
Good question.
It was one of the original. I think it was one of the original varieties that Park targeted in 1960s, 70s.
It had success in Ontario at that point.
Yeah, and that would grow very well here. So it's funny that Park, which is a local research station here at Summerland, they targeted probably 3 or 4 varieties in this valley back then that would grow well, and they were like Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, Merlot, Cab Franc.
Mm.
And you'll see around the plantings today, there's still a majority of the vines that are actually planted here. So they were onto it back then, just through using climatic indices and good places to plant these grapes, and that's still true today.
Mhm.
So,
But has the climate changed, as in, back in the 60s, they're saying, yes, it grew well. Now you're saying it's growing well. Has it always been able to grow well and people just haven't twigged onto it, or is it?
but I just think the way they grow Cab Franc here has just evolved a little bit over the years.
With the general viticultural trend.
Yeah, with the viticulture trend has improved probably in the last 15, 20 years in the valley, and with that, the Cabernet Franc's improved dramatically. It's quite a vigorous variety, and it can be what they call the pyrozines are quite out there in that variety.
Peppery.
Thank you.
The bell pepper, that bean flavour that we get, right? So viticulturists know how to get rid of that or tone that down, and I think that helped make the variety. We still do it on purpose, that we still have pyrozines in Cab Franc because that's true to the varietal. But I think they just grow better, and it's getting better and better and better.
So your job is actually more important than his job,
I'm going to say.
but I can't.
Yeah. Yes, you can. But I can completely destroy all of his hard work in 24
Well,
hours.
that's what I'm saying. So you have to really start with all that knowledge and background to make that great show. Then you hand it over, and Andrew, what do you really do?
So let's back up 2-3 steps here. The first thing that him and I need to discuss is where is that grape going to go? As we mentioned, we've got rosé that we make with Cab Franc. We have our varietal series here that is in the $20 price point. We have it go into the Creek, which is our flagship variety, and then we have the Oldfield Reserves, both Merlot and Cab Franc that get this variety. So each one of those wines, we specifically targeted viticulture to reach those quality levels.
Right.
And so that's where it starts. And then my job, although admittedly there's not a lot I have to do, is more or less streamline those as they come in. Not if they come into plan, then perfect, but the harvest is a time where a lot of decisions happen instantly. And so you might have to change tack. that block that you had planned for rosé might no longer actually be good for rosé because it's been 35 degrees and now it's going to be too alcoholic. So then we have to move that into a reserve wine and then find some lower sugar Cab Franc to make the rosé with. So those kinds of things happen. That's pretty much what I get paid to do.
Okay. And are you still growing Cab Franc over in Black Sage?
Absolutely.
Is that the
Majority.
place? Oh, the majority. So where else do you pick it up from?
We buy a little bit from the west side of Lake Suites.
Yeah. For their varietal series.
Okay, 'cause Black Sage mostly faces east, correct? Or faces,
West.
faces west.
East,
So you're
south
buying,
and west.
yeah, it's on the east side, so it faces west. So
Yeah.
if you're buying from the west side down in the Soyuz, isn't that not facing the other direction?
Yeah.
Morning sun.
Yeah, so you've
Mhm.
got basically the same soil type. So you got the Black Sage Bench, which is alluvial sands from the glacial
Right.
deposits. You have the same soil structures down around the lake in Vesuvius as well. There's a beautiful cycloric actually thick off the bottom end of Anicus there. So
Yep.
it's the same aspect and slope as the Black Sage, basically. So he's one of our great growers. He's been growing our Cab Franc for 5 or 6 years too. So so there's this whole area, probably south of the Bluff, is perfect for Cab Franc production. So I wouldn't buy Cab Franc, say West Lake in the city, because it needs a lot of degree day units to get it right. So and that just puts a risk to the wine if we were actually.
And stylistically, it would change our wine,
Mhm.
the wine's flavor profile
Yeah.
if you add something like that to the mix.
And so now I know you want to leap ahead.
So yeah, just because we're on the Cab Franc gravy train, and then now we're gonna try the Oldfield Series 2010 Cabernet Franc, which is Andrew Moon's favorite wine, and this is actually our first vintage of it, correct?
This was the first reserve Cab Franc that
Yeah.
was produced.
Would you like which one?
Stumps and I just drink.
4-3 years.
Oops.
So 2010, coldest vintage in Canadian history by a couple of degree days to 2011. So I was fortunate enough to come to Tinghorn in 2009. So I've actually experienced the coldest 2 vintages in Canadian history and the 2 hottest
Oh, it serves you right.
in the space of 10 years. Why I like this wine is that being a Cabernet or a Bordeaux varietal, this is one of the coldest, or at least the coldest vintage that was in Canadian history, and the viticulture that it took to get this wine to actually be palatable. You're talking 500-600 degree days less than usual. So
Which would be about 30% down, 40%.
30-40%. So I think we grew this crop at like 2 tonnes to the acre. Usually Cab Franc is 3 to 4. So
Wow.
we actually cut most of it off. So this wine's actually very rare as well.
Yeah.
You can pick it up in Miradora and places like that. I think Manny's still got a little bit of stock of it.
And so are these still the same vines,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Same
this was
vines
the
as the
Bulgaria.
08.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
just
Mhm.
older?
They're just older at that stage, and
So I have a question for you guys, actually. So
This-
I know that we
similar notes.
predominantly
Yeah.
have one block that we use for our rosé, but as far as like what goes into the varietal Cab Franc and what goes into the Oldfield series, could the blocks be changing from vintage to vintage, or is it usually kind of the same blocks that you're?
I'll take that one. Yes, they typically end up being different vintage to vintage, mind you. I think Sandra may have earmarked a few good ones that she liked originally, but then she would go ahead and make those blends right after harvest. So those wines stylistically are a little bit different than how they're made now. Now there are certainly vineyards that perform a little bit better. Our vineyard runs sort of alphabetized A through I, going sort of up the hill to the east into the mountain. And so typically the higher the elevation, they tend to be stronger blocks, but that's not necessarily, again, the case every year. So now other things that I look at are just the natural crop load on that block. So We'll look at sort of vines that are some of the information that Edwin will collect that I'll look at that will tell me really which vineyard block is looking to be the best balanced. And then obviously once the wines are all made, I give them all 12 months before I blend them into reserve or varietal series.
And these aren't from the Golden Mile bench, right? Because the bench is
This is
lower
Black
down
Sage.
and, yeah,
Black
okay.
Black sage again.
Well, that Black Sage is a happening place.
This wine's still strong.
Okay.
Tannin structures in there.
It's lovely to see a cool, very cool vintage still show us really, really beautiful expression of Cabernet Franc. So you go the opposite from the last wine, quite a warm vintage, and then you drop off a few 100-degree days, and you can still see the longevity in the power that's in this vintage. So
I mean,
it's impressive.
I'm impressed still with the 08. I think there was still lots of
Yeah.
flavor in that one. This one just really comes and grabs your mouth and says,
Hello.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
got selling potential.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was trying to get the word for this, and for me it's meaty.
Absolutely.
It's very, very powerful fruit in there. Yeah, long finish.
So I believe technical perspective on this one would have been mostly French oak as opposed to American in the first wine. Likely a bit more time in barrel and a slightly higher percentage of new. I think standard would go to 35% new in the reserve series.
and you choose to use, how long do you use your oak barrels? I mean, I know they get passed along kind of from,
Yeah, we
Great to great.
typically will hold on to the best looking ones. I mean, you can go to Europe and find 100-year-old oak barrels. So
wow.
they have really, they're designed to go the distance. As you know, if you got an oak cabinet in your house that you inherited from your grandma, that's probably 100 years old too. So
Right.
the reality is they can last a very, very long time. We discard oak barrels based on more sensory and analytical reasons. So we test for spoilage bacteria and yeast like Brettanomyces and Acetobacter, and we track which barrels they're present in, and then that becomes sort of more of our culling measure because we typically buy, 30% to 40% new oak every year. So, we work on a third replacement. Yes.
I have a question from Shirley. She wants to know if Tinhorn buys grapes from other vineyards. Does Andrew manage the growth of them?
Yeah, so yes, this is the first part. We do buy grapes from other vineyards. I've been buying grapes since 2010 of other vineyards. At the moment, I have about 5 growers. Okay, they've been with me basically since 2010. When they say manage their vineyards, so the big important thing is obviously to keep the style of the fruit that we grow here on our own estates, okay? Especially, and most of all our fruit that we purchase goes into our varietals, okay? So it could be a blend of Black Sage, Golden Mile, and purchased fruit from, say, a Sunis or whatever. But we look to make sure that the grower understands how important it is for quality terms, and then we go, it's called like, what do they call it, the hand of God. Now, I'm a viticulturist, you turn water into wine.
Right.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Anyway, that basically, yeah, so they get free viticultural advice from us, and then it keeps them with the style that Tinhorn wants. So, and then it's all about relationships and keeping, we've got growers now that are nearly 10 years, or 10 years with Tinhorn, so that's a really good thing, and their families are supported by us. And
Did you maybe want to talk about the philosophy of why we buy fruit in?
yeah,
So that's
you
That
guys
was a
keep
change.
drinking.
that was a change, right? Before you started, it
Okay.
wasn't.
Yeah, so
And-
there's two
decided-
main winery models
Yeah,
in the world.
estate growing.
One's estate versus non-estate.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now that 85%, I think it's even higher than that now, a non-estate model, because wineries don't want to deal with Mother Nature.
Mm.
Okay, so what happens? It's a business.
The
thing.
bears.
It's a business thing. So what happens is that usually grapes by themselves are diurnal or yearly or whatever you want to call them. They produce fruit one year, then don't produce the next year in Mother Nature wild. So as a viticulturist, what you're trying to do is make them produce every year consistently. So that's the first problem. So if you've got sales that need to be consistent and things like that, and your own vineyards are going up and down like this, so you can't supply your restaurateurs, you can't supply your crush club, you can't do those things. So one of the mechanisms that winery uses is to purchase fruit to flatten supply out. Okay? So that's a big thing. So Tinhorn before 2009 were total estate, and then after 2009 we were non-estate, as in we did purchase fruit off growers. But
there was the occasional wine that would be estate.
All our old field is all estate.
Yeah.
And then the varietals, they can be totally 100% estate, or they can have purchase fruit.
So what's going to happen with the big push to make BC wine known around the world? I want my wine for me, right? Crush Club members.
That's not going to happen.
Because I know BC is such a teeny player in the Great Wine
Absolutely.
space.
And we don't have the grape growing capacity to export much wine out of this province, let alone into Alberta, let alone into the US, let alone internationally. So we have 10,000 acres here in BC. To produce wine to go into the export market is really, the whole Canadian wine industry produces enough wine for 1 million people.
Great. Sorry, do we need subtitles on that?
Yeah. So the whole Canadian, this is including Ontario, the Lower Mainland, Vancouver Island, BC, 1 million people.
1 million people.
We sell 85% of our production in one city.
And from where I'm from, we produce enough wine for 60 to 70 million people who have a population of 20 million. So the whole market dynamic is totally different here. That's why we have a lot of imports that come into Canada, even to supply the demand that Canadian people want to drink wine.
You'll get your wine.
Okay.
I've got your back.
All right. Well, I'm just worried about
I
this.
see you're getting nervous.
I will people.
The golden thing about this is that the growers here get really good money for their fruit because the demand is pretty strong for their fruit, and so the wineries are paying good money, and it's sustainable for the industry. So that's going to continue. There's not enough land here to plant enough.
That's what I was going to ask.
Grapes to supply that demand, so that supply is going to be always great for those growers because it's going to keep their families, their farms sustainable. So we're very fortunate in BC to be in that situation.
Because we're looking out the window here, and there's a lot of empty land up there.
The Crown land.
That's Crown land.
Yeah, that's for wildlife, which is also important.
Well, I know that, but I'm just thinking.
Bring me wine.
Exactly. I'm thinking.
We're probably
as a tourist, when I come through, I see land like that, and you guys go, "Oh, not enough grapes." And I'm thinking, well, get up there and
we're
plant
probably at
some.
95% capacity.
Really?
If you planted up on those hillsides and those mountainsides, though, you have massive erosion issues, and
You have to get water to the grapes because we live in a desert.
it's just not environmentally a good idea, nor likely financially, because there's not really any topsoil there either. It is mostly rocks. And we have their issues down here in the more civilized area, on the lower part of the valley. I couldn't imagine how ruthless they would be if you planted up.
So this is the reason why BC wine, we can't buy $12 bottles of BC wine that tastes delicious.
Absolutely
correct.
Absolutely.
So just as
Too much environment.
Too much environment. That's
Yeah.
okay.
It's
I
big.
like our good wine. So we talked about how we could lay down the 2010 Oldfield Series Cab Franc. We actually have a vintage chart as one of our slides here. So we drank through our library, we tasted through. It's here on the screen. It's also available on your summer PDF that came with your summer club case, but it's also posted under your wine club. So do you want to talk about the process that you guys did in order for us to create L vintage chart?
So we did it. We did the library tasting sort of in over 2 years. We did 94 to 07, I believe, 06, in February of last year. And then this year we did 07 to current release, and tasted through every wine that Tim Hortons ever made, which was a pretty good experience.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wines, obviously. And so originally when we did the first tasting, it was more to let's understand where our library stock is at, how much of it will be useful for future dinners, wine tastings, etc., from an educational standpoint, and for fun for consumers. But by the time we got to the second tasting, we thought it would be a good idea to provide some of this information to our customers, because you do enough of these webinars, most of the questions tend to lead to cellaring questions on wines, and so
Quite often.
so we built that into the second tasting, and I think in that day we tried somewhere around 90 plus wines to
I
go
missed out on
through.
that day, by the way, just PSS.
To go through them all in one day. And, the nice thing was for us, certainly once we get into that transition into the Spellman screw cap, the consistency and the quality and longevity of those wines just jumped up dramatically.
Yeah.
And so those are likely reflected in the vintage charts as well. And so, the entire process is very subjective. Some people might find this wine too old. So it's one of the difficult things is being a winemaker trying to make a judgment call on something that is very subjective like that. But I based it on the fact that I've tasted a lot of wine across a lot of different vintages, a lot of old wine, a lot of young wine from a lot of different regions, and I use that to sort of calibrate what I think the wine will do in the next 10, 15 years. And I think that's sort of the maximum that we put down on that list. I can't remember exactly. But,
Yeah.
so how much longer do we have for the 2010 Cab Franc?
Well, the 2010 Cab Franc, it's actually saying it's a 2, so drinking well and still youthful.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say I nailed it.
He did that.
And so humble. So humble.
Jessica, we're getting some waves from the back here.
We actually have a question. It's from Robert. He's just wondering if the decision in winemaking and viticulture is under both Andrews, or if there's other decisions made. So do the decisions come down to both of you in the end? When it comes to winemaking?
There's certainly
There's a sales component.
there's a sales component. So there's
I don't know what you're
person-
talking about.
another person here who's never invited to the webinars. This is a fun sponge, but we call him Jan, our sales and marketing director. And he tells us what he wants us to make. Him and I talk about it and sort of hum and haw. And then we come back to Jen and tell him what we are going to make. And that's typically the process. But we do our best to achieve certainly the quality goals that our customers expect. And that starts with Andrew Moon. And, the reality is if Jen wants X number of cases of Cab Franc, we can only grow so much. And that, we start making decisions around now whether or not we've got the growing season to reach that capacity. Cooler vintages, absolutely not. But we're on track for another really warm and great harvest. So that's, it's always a collaborative business, and it has been certainly since I've been here.
So let me see if I've got that right. Your marketing folks tell you what they want you to do. You two talk and tell your marketing folks what you've decided you're going to do.
It's a three-way street.
It's a triumvirate.
You can get into the trap where it could be sales driven,
Mhm.
okay, and then we just blindly go out and make stuff for whatever the sales are. You can go the other way. We'll just make
2 tons per acre and make them.
or we can say,
Yeah.
screw this, it's easy to make Pinot Gris, good cash flow, blah, blah, and we could just run it, and then the sales guys stand there and go, how the hell are we supposed to sell
We
this?
can't sell it. Yeah.
It's a collaborative thing, and the most successful part is that we actually sit around, and there's 3 of us that take 5 minutes to talk this over. It's really good that it's like that here at Kinghorn, so we can make these big decisions in not very much time, and it works. And we don't have massive inventory issues. We don't. You have the sales guys are happy, the vineyards are happy. At the same time, Andrew's happy because he hasn't got tank.
Plus the
42 minutes of fruit.
The foundation's been set though too. By the way,
Sandra did that.
And Ken had a very good plan in place for the varieties that would succeed. And so we're not really, tinkering too much. Growth for us is small and it's calculated. And if you guys would know, the prices they'll creep up as well as but reasonable. We're not trying to make dramatic change here. And I think as a predominantly estate vineyard and winery, it's a bit easier for us.
Do you lead us as consumers, or do we lead you?
No. I mean, if it was up to me, we'd be making probably 3,000 cases of Syrah, and we'd be selling 500 a year, and I'd have to drink 2,500 cases of Syrah.
Inventory issues or
What a party!
Probably would survive.
So we do listen to the
But
consumers.
that's what I'm wondering. Do you put out a wine and say, "Ooh, look at everybody, we got to drink this wine," and then
But there's
we
trends.
go, "Ooh, quick, let's go," because they're saying we got to drink this wine.
There's base varieties around the world too, and you've got to look outside the Canadian because, to be honest, we are a couple of years behind probably wine trends. Okay,
Well,
from
we're
around the
Canadian.
world.
We're always behind trends.
That's okay,
Yeah.
but
we don't know any better.
You'll see wine trends happening really quick marketplaces like in California, and that trend eventually gets here. So you've got to have those kind of things in the back of your mind as well. But they're trends.
Right.
So those varieties that we were talking about before, like Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, and Merlot, and Cab Franc here in BC, are pretty solid, and they're not as cyclical. So they're not as volatile. So we could all go and grow Tempranillo.
Yeah.
Is that going to be tomorrow? Is that what everyone's going to be drinking? The funny thing happened to me many years ago when the Sauvignon Blanc thing happened out of New Zealand, right? And I thought to myself, this is just a trend, but that wasn't. There was a groundswell. Okay, so that Sauvignon Blanc trend continued. Cab Franc has done that in the last, say, 5 to 10 years as well. But it's a groundswell. It's getting more and more popular all the time. So they're the kind of things you're trying to look forward to the future, whether they're just trends like blue wine.
Yeah.
In a bottle.
No,
is that a trend,
wine
or
trend,
do we start growing blue wine?
I've already made it, guys. We're gonna have to drink it.
So
That's our next
and you have to
innovation.
you have to be very cognizant of that as a winery, because we can't make these short-term decisions like breweries and stuff.
Well,
you're 4 to 7 years out.
wineries following trends is never a good idea.
No.
You do what you do well.
But France and Italy, I mean, they don't follow trends.
No. They do, but they're very, very subtle.
Yeah.
And they're probably over 10 to 20 years. You're not chasing a trend. In wine in a 2 to 3 year span is impossible for us to do that. So we don't try.
So in
So
the
where
essence
do
of time, we have Andrew Windsor's.
Yes.
Well, and mine. It's both
It's a
of our. It's a duel because we like to do everything together. It's the 2010 Oldfield Series Pinot Noir.
Yes.
Oh.
So it's again, we got some pretty good context here because the last one was 2010 Bordeaux variety. Now we're doing 2010 Burgundy variety Pinot Noir, and I think it shows. This has been one of my favorite wines since I started getting to try it a few years ago. But it just really highlights the ability of our terroir to express two what people would think very different grape varieties in terms of why would these be planted in the same sites?
Yeah.
And this is a perfect vintage that expresses these varieties well.
Could you explain for us lesser knowledgeable people the different styles you just mentioned?
Yes. So most people would expect Cabernet Franc to be grown on a hot site.
But you're talking Burgundy and Bordeaux. Like I don't.
Right. So we'll go back to the very basics of red wine in terms of French varieties, which is important. So if you're not familiar, Bordeaux varieties are the Cabernet varieties for red wines. Cabernet and Merlot typically dominates 95% of all of the grapes grown in Bordeaux for red wine production. So Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, and Merlot. There's also Carmenere and Malbec and a few other things. So when I refer to Bordeaux varieties, I'm talking about
Big
those
red.
types of wines
Okay.
that
Historically,
typically,
where they come from.
historically where they come from, sort of their origin, and they're also probably the biggest part of our red wine portfolio and typically what we're known for. Burgundy varieties, I'm referring to the two main ones. Red would be Pinot Noir and white would be Chardonnay.
Okay.
And so they're grown in France, probably 1,000 kilometers apart from each other, and we're growing them within 10 meters of each other, maybe 100 meters of each other.
Wow.
And so that would be blasphemy to the French, but thankfully we're not in France, and we can prove to them that
It cannot be done.
we can, in a cool vintage year, how slow and beautiful some of these cooler vintages can go, and especially if we've had a cool vintage and we don't have an early frost, as 2010 was a year where we didn't have frost, but we just didn't. We had very gradually ripening all the way through to the end of October and probably later. I don't know when these would have been picked.
And our production at we're in half.
Yeah. Yes.
See, this is a bigger Pinot. I'm kind of
It's
surprised.
it's more concentrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yield on these Pinot vines would have been probably a third or 2/3 less than what we usually grow.
So
That's because of the requirement to ripen it. So, and that's why you get such concentrated flavors on this wine. If we grew that like that every year, we'd go broke.
Okay. Well, because Jane and I were saying that Pinot isn't one of our
Especially in
favorites
church. Yeah.
because it tends to be
This is
a lighter
Yes.
wine
Yeah.
for us. But this has
Super
some.
Very
concentrated.
full-bodied, yeah.
I've done enough verticals of Pinot Noir from other Okanagan producers, and the same vintages keep popping up, and those are the cooler vintages are always seem to be showing better for aged wines, and hopefully I reflected that in
Interesting.
our vintages chart. But
You did. This was a 3, so drinking well, mature. But yeah, because I'm like yourself, Carol and Jane. I hated Pinot Noir, and then I had this, and then I fell in love.
it's a strong word.
I wasn't
was
quite
in-
that strong.
Hated Pinot Noir.
I was an ABP-enner. Sure, that'll work. But yeah,
going to forgive you now.
Yeah.
You realize
I know.
Lovely.
He still loves me. We'll drink to it
Twitchy.
later. It's fine.
Yeah.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Just forget it. But then I fell in love with it because of this vintage.
Yeah.
And it actually helped me appreciate lighter vintages, like lighter styles of Pinot Noir as well.
Why? This to me would spoil the lighter Pinots.
No, it just kind of opened my mind to it. It's the same way I wasn't a huge
It's all right.
Chard fan either, and then I tried our Old Cook Reserve Chard. So
There's
I have a
the
special
Pinot
spot in my heart for that.
This is the gateway drunk.
So I
This is a gateway Pinot.
have a question
Yeah,
about
I don't think
Pinots.
so. This, I drink
Is
this, but not others.
this
Yeah.
the great wine for summer entertaining?
I drink it all year round.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guys, but I think it's certainly in this style. It is a very diverse. This could go still. I think you sell a steak with this wine.
Yeah.
So
No, I think you could drink this. Yeah, I
this
agree.
covers
Year
a
round.
pretty large
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah. So this really
Yeah.
breaks out of the notion of a
Pinot being
little lighter wine. I mean, I taste a lot of alcohol here. Am I right?
Well, it's
Is that right?
You're not wrong.
14.6%.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So it's it is high in alcohol.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
why we
Super
like it.
concentrated Pinot.
Yeah.
Cool climate year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Like,
agree. This is nice.
Okay,
So-
here's one for you. We were talking about how my friend Lois, who's in the cheering section back there, and I were talking earlier
Hello, some wine,
about how some people, there is a winery who I won't name, that
That's
actually
no fun,
has
Carol.
Slurpee red wine, and I know there's also other wineries that say chill your red for the
Yes.
summer. What's that?
I've had that happen in the
I saw
It
somebody
depends.
Slurpee with one of my
If
wines.
you're at
I'd
home,
leave the party.
if you're at home and you're home sitting at 25, 26 degrees Celsius, I'll chill my red wine.
You do, and they will
Almost
they will do that in the Mediterranean. They'll put it
Absolutely.
into a chiller.
So room temperature.
And I said, "What are you
lasts
doing?
like 15.
It's too hot. sir. You know, it's just too hot.
Well, because room temperature is for a castle, right?
It's got to bring it
Yeah.
down.
But there are wines that do well when they are chilled. And I'm just saying, are any of these chillable? Is that a word?
Yes. Every wine glass is.
No, I know, but some, they really pop when they're nice and cold.
Some pop when they're cold, and others are just downright undrinkable when they're warm. So I think it could be both.
And then it's the colder the wine gets, is it mute to aromatics? Is that?
I find red wines, if they get too cold, they tend to aggravate the tannin profile, so they taste more bitter.
Yeah.
And the fruit flavors do get subdued. But the same with whites.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Jessica.
I have a Pinot Noir question. So are your current Pinot Noirs as bold as this 2010 you are tasting? Or are they lighter in taste?
Depends on the vintage. I can zip through a few. 14s as strong. 15s are lighter. 16s are lighter as well.
14, 10.
So 14.
And
Yeah.
17's a barrel right now.
Pinot is one of the biggest grape varieties that are affected by yield, temperature, climate. So they call it whatever they call it.
A heartbreak.
Grape, right?
Yeah.
But they're highly affected by, they're seasonal, right? So you can get big differentiation even in a single varietal block Pinot just from each season to season.
Wow.
Yeah, plus we haven't really had any cool vintages since 14.
No, we haven't.
So that's probably leading to the more recent vintages being a little bit lighter.
So go from.
Go from.
Just saying.
So one of the things we have to do is watch yield management. So as we've got a really hot season, we actually leave more yield on grapevines to slow the ripening. It slows the ripening process down.
Oh.
So if you ripen too quickly, you don't have all those back flavors and things like
Yeah.
that. in
Just
the
have
wine.
high level.
So if you cut all the fruit off, say we did that to
Yeah.
what we go, oh, let's make the 2010 again and cut it down to 2 tons of acre. If I did that this year, the wine would be 16% alcohol and have no flavor profile.
Mm.
Because it would be too hot and it would ripen really, really quickly. So you have to leave yield on it to slow the vine down to let it have flavour development.
I'm hearing a lot of science. Tell me, both of you.
Yes.
Tell me,
It
both
can get pretty nerdy on this
is
show.
making great wines about science or is it about art?
Both.
Phony question, I know,
It's
but
both.
in what way is it both?
Because every single viticulturist might be doing something different in a vineyard based on their knowledge, their experience, and they might have some quirks, whatever, and every single winemaker.
Yeah, I mean, wine can be malleable enough that you can describe it as artistic.
Mhm.
You know, the nuances that you do.
Yep.
I mean, what I also do aside from just bringing grapes in is once we start the fermentation process, I'm tasting those wines every day from grape juice through to finished fermenting. And so we adjust the daily regime on how we work the cap and how we make the wines every single day. And that's predominantly done just by sensory.
Yep.
So
It's real
although,
art. Yeah.
That's artistic.
although we
Yeah,
run
that's
a
art.
lot
Yeah.
of numbers and, I have a master's degree in wine chemistry, essentially, that tells you to go in there, make your numbers look like this.
Mhm.
That equals winemaking, circa Australia, 2007.
Mhm.
But the reality is we do native ferments for all of our reds, so we don't add anything, we don't add any acids, we don't.
Mm.
So the process now, although I know the chemistry, is to let the wines sort of make themselves, let nature take its course.
Mhm.
Wine's been made for 9,000 years, we don't need to make it.
Right.
But if it starts
Mhm.
taking the left turn and my job is on the line, then yes, I'm going to
You're going to nudge it.
and correct it to run straight again.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more fun to let wines sort of happen a bit more naturally. I find that way they express the terroir and the vintages a lot more dramatically than going in and manipulating everything to the point where it's Coca-Cola and it's the same every year. And that's not what wine's about.
And I know we're gonna talk about the two bench in a minute, but I just have a question. Did you ever try Wine Kid?
No.
Okay.
Okay, those are the questions I said, don't ask.
But I'm just thinking, like there's a lot of people who start, they want to try
I
wine.
may have tried one at someone else's house and they surprised me with it,
Mhm.
but no, I've never tried to use a wine kit and make
Yeah.
one or go to the wine kit shop to make one.
Well, it's just, you're talking about artistry, and I know that people want to start
Yes.
somewhere with making wine, and I think some people who have
That's an
space, they'll give it a go, so.
I mean, I recommend just buying our wines instead.
Okay, I'm with you.
And I actually fully recommend them just becoming club members.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Save the trip to the wine kit.
Yeah, exactly. Just save the trip to the wine.
Order it online, it'll be
Kit.
in your back door.
And join the club. You can
There's a
do it
very good wine
online.
kit place in Oliver, but they just come.
Okay.
So next up, last but certainly not least, we have Ken's favorite. I was gonna say Ken and James, but she said it was the Cab Franc, so we're sharing it. I like that I'm getting it first. That's nice, thank you.
Try not to spill.
So this is the 2008 Oldfield Series 2-bench red. What's exciting is when I asked Ken and Jane what their favorite Tinhorn wine was, is that I think you're probably one of our original club members. You've been with us since Merlot Futures. So before the day that we were a club. So, which is really, really cool. We're quite fortunate at Tinhorn that we have a large number of members who've been with us.
That's
since
right.
Merlot Futures.
And
So was I.
I think of
wasn't
myself
born.
as a patient investor.
You have been
In
a definite investor. Ken.
One whole case of Merlot.
So what?
An investor in the success of Tinhorn.
So we've been talking a lot about the winemaking process, but what about this wine, Ken, makes you fall in love with it so much?
Well, I was excited to learn that here in the very place that as a kid I used to come camping in the Okanagan, in the South Okanagan, we could do a wine that stood up to the Bordeaux region. What is the magic that goes into the two-bench red? What are the two benches?
It's a cab.
Well, the two bench story is more or less the two vineyard sites that we have. So when the Shaughnessy's and Oldfield bought the properties, they bought them simultaneously, knowing that they would need what was I think 200 acres on that side at the time, and as well as the vineyard sites here to actually make a solid go at having a production facility to be 4,000 cases, and that was, I believe, always their business strategy from the start. So the two benches, I believe, in the early days we had some Bordeaux varieties on this side. So the two benches was more or less an opportunity to highlight the best components of both vineyard sites.
So we've got grapes on both sides. We still do that. We've got
Yes.
Pinot Gris, Chardonnay. We've got Syrah on both sides of the valley. What else we got? I think there's one other Chardonnay. Oh, that might be it.
Yeah.
So there's two.
Pinot
Yeah,
Noir.
and Pinot Noir. So we've got those on both sides of the valley.
Yep.
It's very fortunate that Tinhorn we have those sites because the varietal expression of both sides of the valley is so different that and for blending and things like that, especially in two bench, the old two bench like that, that you can get the best out of both worlds. So you can have, say, if you had a Pinot Gris coming from both sides, you have these massive fruit-forward tropical fruit flavors coming off of black sage, and then the whole minerality and citrus flavors coming off this side. So when you blend those two together, you have these beautiful layers in these wines that come together.
And the refinement.
And that's our fortunate thing that we have sites on both sides.
Is it just me, or I'm like stunned at how delicious.
Me too.
Yes,
I was
spectacular.
trying to explain to everybody, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
I knew we nailed it.
Like we all kind
Yeah.
of just like had our first
We
sip
just
of it, and
kinda-
then took a moment, and we're just like, I just
Yeah.
need to breathe this out. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, isn't it great?
This is wonderful.
Now, one thing
So,
I'm
do you have the cépage on, is it the blend on the screen? So
Yeah, so it's
yeah, I'm
40%,
curious about the blend.
Yeah, it's 40% Cabernet Sauvignon,
Mhm.
40% Merlot, and 20% Cab Franc.
Okay, no Sanso. Oh, we don't do
No.
Sanso here, do we?
No, that'd be
Not- not a problem.
The other
Yeah.
ones we usually do here for Bordeaux blends, Petit Verdot.
Oh, okay.
So
You
this is
better go.
considered
Okay.
a Bordeaux blend because.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
It sure is.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
just gorgeous.
one thing that we I mean, I love it, but there is something about a really good French Bordeaux blend about the finish. It just goes on forever.
Yes,
What is that? And why
it's the finish.
don't we?
It's probably the fact that you're in Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Is it? It's in my mind.
has a lot
It's
to
in
do
my
with it.
head.
Trust me. We're gonna go over there. I'm like, wow, these are great wines.
Yeah. Or I've been drinking too many of those great wines. Yeah.
The finish goes on
Yeah.
forever because you're on your third bottle.
Okay,
It just
so
never
I
stops.
I asked the same
Doesn't taste the same at
question.
home, yeah.
I asked the same question of a wine cellar in France, and he said, "Yeah, it is c'est unctuosité, monsieur, unctuosity. It's slipperiness about the finish,
But
and
this has
it's not
it.
here.
Yes,
This
it is. This has it.
But that's why it's good. Look at those
This
legs.
is what
Like,
this
Oh yeah,
has.
big legs.
This has
Yes, yeah,
This is a
So viscosity,
power
huh?
for
Yeah.
a 10-year-old wine still.
yeah.
That doesn't taste
So
like it's
Jessica
a
had a
wine.
question. She's been very patiently waving at us back
Yes.
there.
Speaking of all these great wines we're tasting, I've actually had a few questions from club members asking
Favorite
when
people.
they will be able to buy these.
Oh!
Sorry, we just drank the last one.
I know that they definitely have all these wines at Miracle.
They do still have
Yeah.
them all here, Doro.
And then
Ah.
traditionally, we always have a library wine sale. Not that they're not on sale, that you can buy them in February.
Library sales.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you can
But
purchase them.
I think
But I
this-
want
But
one
not
today.
sure. If
It also highlights the importance
You have to be
of
patient.
reviewing the
Yeah.
hard work that we did to make that vintages chart.
Yeah.
And hold on to them yourselves. I mean, I know 10 years is a long
Mhm.
time.
Some of us live in
Uh,
apartments.
Sometimes it's nearly impossible to age wine for 10 years, but you know,
Just
that
put all
is
your wine at my place, Carol.
Yeah, like I'm never seen it.
it's a pretty high tax right
I almost spit out my
I'll look
wine on
after it
that.
for you.
Yeah, sure.
there. Well, I think that is, you know, an opportunity to highlight one of the great things about having Miradoro, our restaurant upstairs, is that the markups on these back vintage wines they're not that high, so you can really walk in and, you know, if you're paying attention to this show, I would be going up there and buying the rest of that 08 2-bench red.
Yeah.
My next dinner.
But can,
All the
can I
07 is
just walk
gone.
up, but can I just walk up
Gone.
there and buy one?
Well,
I
you
have
have
to
to drink
eat.
it up there.
Oh,
Yeah, drink it up.
I don't know if that's
No, you
true.
don't. You only have to
I
glass.
think if you bought it, they're in the actual wholesale stuff. So
Yeah.
Oh, you
Good to
go
know.
ahead.
Oh, the
Jessica.
secret is
You have
out.
another question?
I do. I actually have a question about Petit Verdot. Wanting to know if it is
Mhm.
used in any of our wines, and are we planning on doing a pure varietal of it?
It is used in the creek and the visit only.
Wow.
Are you?
And
Talk
I
about
don't think we're
authentic.
planning on making a single varietal Petit
No.
Verdot.
He's all just
Absolutely
like, I'm just
We
gonna
don't have
pop
much. We
this
don't
out.
have very much acreage on
Oh.
Petit Verdot. We have like 12 rows or something.
Yeah,
So
about
Yeah.
2 of an acre.
Yeah. So it's an absolutely authentic Bordeaux.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, another one that's it's also
But answer the question, when are you making a Verdot?
we are now planning on making 9%.
That's two of us saying no.
Sorry, person.
Sorry,
You
Shirley.
want 100% Petit Verdot, 7 stones, and smoke clean. It's a good place to go.
And
7 stones.
Right, that's it.
Can I-
There's a
Around
couple of
13.
them.
no,
Beautiful.
Benavite.
Vidante.
Benavite?
Yeah.
There's a lot of really nice Petit Verdot.
Yeah, see, everyone else is killing it, so
In a skilling.
we'll let
There's
them
a
have
few.
it.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So you guys are just gonna kill the cab
We
front?
don't have any, we actually don't have much acreage in particular,
Yeah.
so.
Is it another heartbreak grape? Is it
It's a
hard
difficult
growth?
variety to grow.
It's
Yeah.
one of the hardest grapes to grow. So,
So is there a future for the two bench red, or has it been concluded?
It has seen its last day, unfortunately.
So it's a rare-
What do you mean
Ceased
by that?
production in 2014.
2013 was the
2013.
last
Oh,
vintage,
really?
yes.
And I've drunk all of mine, so.
We have more. Just saying.
And there's two reasons for
Okay.
that. The first one is that the two bench was originally a tier of wines that we would make.
Yes.
Two bench white, two bench rosé,
Mhm.
and the two bench red. The two bench rosé was the first one to go because we didn't use both benches.
I remember it well. Yes.
The same is
It's more of a brand.
is also the case for the two bench red. Not
Mhm.
necessarily are we using both. It's always been 98% black sage, anyways.
Yeah.
Which is where most of our Bordeaux varieties do reside. So.
Yeah.
So again, plus I wanted all that Cabernet for our Creek one.
Yes. And that's where we're going
Yeah.
with the big red blend.
Yes.
Which is always Cabernet.
Jump in, Shalana.
So I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but we're out of time.
Wow.
I know that was a very fast hour. It was fantastic. But all of a sudden we blinked and it was gone.
We ran out of content again.
No, we didn't run out of content at
I have
all.
more questions.
It's awful when there's nothing to talk about.
Right? It's absolutely horrible.
Well, thank you very much for our guests.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Job
you for
well
having
done.
Yeah.
So just a reminder to those watching and to those sitting here as well. Right now we have our summer barbecue pack promo going on until July 31st. So that's 3 bottles of the 2012 Oldfield Series Pinot Noir and 3 of the 2016 Two Bench White. And it's $20 shipping anywhere in Canada.
Deal.
Which is a really great deal. And if you're a 46 Berks member, because we have plenty of those as well, we have you covered as well. If you purchase the summer barbecue pack, you'll enter to win a 2-night guest stay at our guest houses.
It's worth it.
And then our next online Crush Club chat is me and this guy.
Oh.
Talking about the Vineyard Report 2018.
In the middle of it.
In the middle of it. September
Oh.
25th. You've already
Ah.
RSVP'd to it.
Will you be
Can't get out of it.
Will we be digging holes Sunday?
I might have a high vis on
That's fine.
And a beer in the stand.
That's fine too.
that. I'll be right in the middle of harvest.
Maybe I'll have a high vis and a beer in my hand
It's a
too.
high vis.
Yeah.
It's a high vis vest, so you
Oh,
can
oh,
see him. Like
Sorry.
See, I need subtitles.
Very stylistic.
But yeah, so thank you very much. And
Cheers,
thanks
everyone.
again
Thank you
to
so
our
much for
guests.
coming.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Yep.
Yay.
Are we still talking? Do you want us to still ask questions? I have questions.